Yo, what is going on? And you are here because you forgot your Japanese and need to learn it again. We learn Japanese episode 25, I think. Let's go ahead and get in there. So the first one is giving and receiving. So gift giving, if you will, in Japan is very big culture. If you ever go traveling or anybody goes traveling, they'll come back to your workplace or school and they'll be given omiyage, which is souvenirs in Japanese. You should know that. And you know, everybody getting souvenirs except for you. Y'all know how that feels, ALTs. Everybody getting one except for you. But you got to give them some, you know. So that's why if you get like a Kit Kat, they come in little packets, and that's why Japan uses so much plastic. But that is for another day. Anyway. So the hardest part of Japanese is not all the other grammar that we learned up to this point, but probably these three, which is probably the most confusing and honestly takes a little bit of brain power and some conceptualization and practice and experience to really get the hang of. Even after all these years that I've studied Japanese, it's only recently I've really started to differentiate it just by just kind of hearing how people use it in real daily life. So we have three, which is ageru, kureru, and morao. And each of these have some sort of kanji, except for kureru, it comes from kudaru, but a little bit different. But you'll see later on that the kanji will help you kind of conceptualize and visualize where these words come from. So ageru, so when you give something to someone from the speaker's point of view. So for examples, we have tetsudatte ageru, I will help. I will give you this help. I will give you the favor of helping you. So I will help, and I'll by giving you this favor of help. That's basically what that means. So you use it when you are giving something or doing something for somebody, or you're doing them a favor or something like that. So I will grant this to you, right? I will grant this to you. It could also be used in another way where you're giving a gift to somebody. So you're getting a gift to someone and you're literally presenting the gift up. You're ageru, and I'm going to give you this, and this is going to be my favor, oh gracious God, basically. So you can also use ageru when you're talking from someone else's perspective. So for example, you say, Seito ga kore wo sensei ni ageru. The student gives this to the teacher, right? As a favor or whatever they're doing, and they're presenting it to the teacher. And you can see the relationship here in the social standing where the lower person is giving something to the bigger person. So there has to be some sort of honorific built in, even though it's not in honorific form. The verb itself, ageru, is to raise. It comes from that conceptually. So the student gives this to the teacher, right? From the perspective of the student. From the other way around, you could also do it even though the sensei is higher in a social standing than the student in the social standing. In this specific situation, he is, let's call him humble. He's humble enough to grant the favor of something to someone else with respect. So for example, Suzuki wa 自分の生徒にいいことを教えてあげた. So Suzuki taught his students something nice from his perspective as a favor of something. You can also use yaru to replace ageru, but it's kind of weeb, it's kind of cringe, and it's a little bit rude. So like you'll hear like the word koroshite yaru. So I'll give you the gift of killing you, or koroshite ageru. But that's more like that, you know, that really high end. Oh, koroshite ageyo ka, misete ageyo ka, ore no chikara o misete ageru. So I will show you my true power, kind of thing, you know, in animes you'll hear this a lot, or misete yaru, so you'll hear that as well. Or simply, you know, you can kind of just replace it, and it kind of has this implication of rudeness towards people, I guess. It's kind of like this very inanimate kind of talking, like, did you do the thing, right? So neko ni esa o yatta, but this implies giving. In this particular case, it does just replace ageru straight up. But there's still this idea of giving something to someone, but just not as humbly. So instead of the giver's point of view, you could also do kureru, which is the receiver's point of view. And that you received it as a favor or in good faith from somebody. Or when someone else is giving something, right? So this is the big thing, because you have morau and you have kureru, which mean the same thing in basis. But kureru really means you received it as a favor from a higher power. And you'll see that with the kanji later on in the episode today, where that comes from. So, 友達が 私に犬をくれた. My friend gave me a present, which is a dog. Right? He gave me a dog. ケーキを買ってくれる? Will you buy me a cake? 生徒がこれを生徒に Oops. Say sorry. 先生がこれを生徒にくれる. Right? The teacher will give this to the student from the student's perspective. Now, this is where it gets a little confusing. You got to use a little bit of your imagination here, but you got to imagine you are the student or you are part of the students. And basically, the sensei will give us something. He will give us something, which is where this comes from. So the verb really does change the perspective. So just pay attention to that and don't let it beat you up too much. It just really comes from practice. So important. So from the speaker's point of view, all the giving done is to others goes up. So like I was talking about, you're a slave man, you're a peasant, and you're presenting a gift, and you're literally raising a gift up to the shogun or lord or something like that. That's probably where it came from back in the day. And giving being done by everybody else is kind of down. Like, oh yes, I will give you something, you poor peasant weeb, right? So that's why it comes from kureru, which comes from kudaru, which means to go down, which can turn into kudasaru, which is the honorific form of kudaru, which turns into kudasai, which turns into like a shinasai, which is like a an ordering form. So that's basically where that comes from. So please do something, lowering, give it something to somebody with this verb. So you can see that the difference between these two, ageru and morau, ageru and kudaru, are polar opposites of each other. And you can see the relationships between whoever is doing the giving and whoever is doing the receiving. It really does present itself here with the kanji. This is why I love kanji. Okay, so Masonが教えてあげるんですか? Will Mason be the one to grant the gift of teaching to others? Not me. Not me. Not the guy who's asking, but to other people. Mason が教えて... Oh my god, I can't read Japanese today. Mason が教えてくれるんですか? Will Mason be the one to grant the gift of teaching me and others? So you can see how the perspective changes with these two verbs here. The perspective changes and who's giving and who's receiving. So you could also use morao, which has a kanji as well. So it is seen from the perspective of the receiver, but does not emphasize the favor being done. It is mostly just a neutral and due process kind of thing. So just a neutral way, and it's not like somebody did you a favor, and there's no like real relationship involved. It's just kind of like, I did the thing, right? So, hanko shite moraimasu ka? Right? Could you please stamp the hanko for me? But it's not like, boss, please, boss, please. It's just like, just stamp it for me. That's all I just gotta do for the process. So if you want to just keep it natural, you can do morao. If you're trying to ask for something to be done for you for your own personal gain, that's when you would use kureru. When it's just a thing and it's just whatever, then you'll just use morao. That's the easiest way to do it. And ageru is just giving. So if you want to ask for a favor, like we just talked about, right? Ichimo o kashite kureru? Could you lend me $100 for my own personal gain? Right? Ichimo o kashite moraeru kana? Can I receive the favor of you lending me $100? You see how there's this potential form with morau turns to moraeru, which kind of humbles it down. It's like, I was wondering if maybe I could get something from it. I'm not implying, I'm not directly asking. I'm just stating a possibility. I was wondering if it was possible, if you could lend me $100. That way you're really just taking yourself out of the picture, which Japanese people love to do and dodge political blunders. So anyway, next one is ichiman o kashite kudasai, which this is just give me $100. This is literally just an order. Not an order, more like a polite request, right? Which we'll see how it changes from the polite request to a more demanding request. So you can get rid of kureru and kudasai by literally just getting rid of it and just implying it with the te form. So keiki o katte, buy me a cake. Do it. Next one, keiki o katte kudasai. Please buy me a cake. Neutral senpai. And keiki o katte kure. Right? So just please buy a cake. You also hear this a lot in tasukete kure. Somebody please save me. Please. And it's really manly and anime-ish, the last one there. But anyway, guys, that is all for today's episode of Relearn Japanese. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something new. If you did, make sure you like, rate, comment, and subscribe. And your Japanese is ass, which is why you're here. Anyway. Yeah.